Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Signal Hour, where we find the signal inside the signal. I spend a lot of time distilling where the news is, what it is, and finding the nuggets, so you don't have to. And today I am joined by Unicorn in Residence. Hi, Evie.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Good to be here.
She truly is a unicorn for everybody who's actually wondering. That's true. So we got to start with the Kennedy nomination here, and we got a lot to cover today. So let's get right to it. And by the way, you can watch this on Rumble. You can watch it. I guess you might see it on YouTube. This is also pushing out to Twitter. So wherever you're coming from, thank you for being here. Leave your comments. This is live, so we're reading the comments as they go. And it says check Evie's mic. Thank you for that quick feedback. Give me 1 second, Evie. 1 second, because we are everything. We are producers. We are studio. Oh, yeah. So
I'm off.
How's that?
Can you hear me now?
Oh, hi. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that quick feedback. Much
check.
appreciated. All right. So
Thanks, Barry.
Thanks, Barry. All right. Let's get started. Big day. And we got to talk about this RFK nomination. So I want to start with the high point of this. As a lot of you may know, I've served on the board of something, outfit called the FLCCC for, almost since the beginning, since 2021.
Which stands for?
The Frontline COVID Critical Care Doctors. And that, of course, included Pierre Corey and Paul Merrick and everybody else. We've got all these senior fellows now. That is getting rebranded to the Independent Medical Alliance. And so that, because COVID's pretty much done, but the battles are just beginning. And so let's talk about what these battles really are. Right now, as this is happening, RFK Jr. is in confirmation hearings, and he's in a fight. Now, as we know, Congress has just lost the plot line. They no longer serve the people, right? We know that, right?
No kidding.
No, I know, I understand, but they've really jumped the shark. And now when you watch these confirmation hearings, it's just this painful. They don't ask questions. They're just posturing. They're virtue signaling to their bases. But really, unfortunately, they're signaling actually who they are. Remember, as Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Okay? I think we know who these people are now. And I'm going to just call it like I see it. They're demons. We're facing actual demons. What would a demon want? He would want you to be sick and unhealthy. And more importantly, a demon, he or she, might want your children to get sick, diseased, get cancer, and die.
And they'd want you to suffer.
They'd want
suffering.
Yeah, they'd like some more suffering with that. That's what demons do. So first, before we get to the demon part of this whole story, let's listen in. This is Senator Ron Johnson, who we had the pleasure of meeting just recently. Good guy. He said, when I met him, he said, "You're that two-shooter guy from the Trump analysis." That was a nice moment for me personally. So we made it too.
You can die a happy man now.
Yes.
That's good.
All right. So here's a statement from RFK Jr. in response to a question that Ron Johnson. We're going to see from Ron Wyden in a minute. Totally different guy. Didn't mean to.
When I launched my campaign, it was about uniting Americans, Democrats and Republicans. There's no issue that should unite us more than this chronic health epidemic. There's no such thing as Republican children or Democratic children. These are our kids. 66% of them are damaged. I know what a healthy kid looks like because I had so many of them in my family. I didn't know anybody with a food allergy growing up, peanut allergy. Why do 5 of my kids have allergies? Why are we seeing these explosions in diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, neurological diseases, depression, all of these things that are related to toxics in the environment? Why can't we just agree with each other to put differences about so many issues, intractable issues aside, and say, we're going to end this? I don't think anybody is going to be able to do this like I have because of my peculiar experience, because I've litigated against these agencies. When you litigate against them, you get a PhD in corporate capture and how to unravel it. I've written 6 books about these agencies. I know a lot about them and I know how to fix it. And there's nobody who will fix it the way that I do because I'm not scared of vested interests. I don't care. I'm not here because I want a position or a job. I have a very good life and a happy family. This is something I don't need. I want to do this because we're going to fix it.
All right. What do you take
Wow.
from that?
He's just so dripping with integrity.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he expressly says that he's not, he doesn't need this job. You know, he's doing it because he actually cares, and he's
Nobody needs a public job. You're going to take a pay cut. The hours are horrible.
it's
The
thankless.
stress is amazing.
It's a thankless job, I'm sure.
I guess, to a point. Unless you're Nancy Pelosi, then you're well compensated by always making the right moves from a stock standpoint. So, look, this has been the most amazing thing to watch unfold. RFK Jr. has very clearly said, and he's made his whole career about this. He's like, just bring us the data. We just want the data. The data is really awful. When he says 66% of our kids are damaged, neurological issues, autism, all sorts of neural issues besides metabolic, this and that, autoimmune diseases. It's terrible. And a healthy culture would have said time out a long time ago and gotten to the root of this. And right now, I'm watching the opposition, such as it is, they're trying to demonize him, saying, oh, he's just in it for the power. He's just in it for the money.
They're telling you what their motives are.
Yeah, they're actually telling you something about themselves in that particular moment. But this is actually a really telling moment. I think we're looking into the soul of our nation right now. And I don't like what I see. That's what's actually, at one level, this is politics and it's just a blood sport. And, you know, my side wins, your side loses, and that's the game. On another level, RFK Jr. is threatening to expose decades of self-abuse, corporate abuse, government abuse, corruption that conspired to harm our children. So this is now a moral issue. He's exposing a moral issue. Now, the problem for these people in Washington, D.C. is that they are amoral, immoral. They know that their biggest Achilles heel in this whole story is, what if I'm exposed for who I actually am? That's what I think they're actually afraid of. Terrified. What if people see us for who we actually are? And they are nasty people. Anybody who will harm somebody else's child for fun or profit is a nasty person. So that's actually what's on display right now. And that's really what we're hearing about. So let's cut now, if we can, to the second part of the story. So this is RFK's position. Look, 66% of our children are damaged. If it was 6%, we should still be interested and curious, figuring out what the heck is going on, getting to the root of it with all the passion of somebody who's trying to figure out why their bank account's being drained by somebody in Nigeria, right? You should care, right? And the second thing is he's saying, we should bring data to this. That's his whole point the whole time. Let's just bring the data.
Right.
Now, if you knew that you were going to be exposed, Evie, what kind of arguments, let's just make it up. Let's say you know that you're exposed. You can't risk somebody looking at the data because it's going to show that you have been a horrible human being the whole time. You've allegedly been in power administering this thing, right? How would you attack RFK?
I'd try to probably just bring down his character, make him seem less credible, unqualified, all the things they're actually doing. Yeah. It's hard for me to put myself in that position, though, because
I know you're just not that person.
I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
I can't do what they're doing. But
all right. So we're going to start here. This is easy. So this is just sort of, Elizabeth Warren, who happens to be from our own state of Massachusetts.
I don't mean to puke. I just can't help it.
When I was talking with Dave Collum during his beautiful year in review we have at Peak Prosperity, and we had a podcast that went along with that to orient people to this thing. He said that he was in communication with Liz Warren, and she was okay at the beginning. She actually came in. She wanted to champion for people. Something happened, and I'm just going to think this is a Mr. Smith goes to Washington. Anybody who goes to D.C., no matter how well principled, ends up getting destroyed by it somehow. We're about to see just how destroyed she is. So this starts out with just a little bit of levity, just to set the stage a tiny bit.
The question would be, can I commit
You're
to
not
what?
going to take money from drug companies in any way, shape, or form.
Who? Me?
Yes,
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I'm
You're the
happy
one-
to commit to that.
Okay, good. That's what I figured. I said it's an easy question to start with. And I think you're right on this.
I don't think any of them want to give me money, by the way.
let's keep going. You're right.
You having trouble hearing?
Yeah, I couldn't hear it.
She said, are you going to take money from drug companies directly? And he's like, me? No. And the whole audience laughed. You could even hear it over the microphones and everything like that. All right. But I need you to be able to hear this next part that's coming up. So there was this, and we're going to go into this in much more detail later on, but the Wall Street Journal comes forward and has an editorial this is from their editorial board. So that's just whoever works at the editorial board. I don't know their names. And the editorial is why RFK Jr. is dangerous to public health. And look at the subhead. So when I asked you, what would you do to attack him, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have to start with this, which is the way they're starting is he's made millions from referring clients to trial lawyers, and he advocates mass tort litigation that would ruin the vaccine industry. That's what they're leading with. That would ruin public health. If you held companies liable for the harms they cause, somehow that ruins
They wouldn't continue the harms.
the vaccine industry. That's what we would call a good thing, right? If all we had was Ford Pintos and they were all just blowing up and you sued Ford out of existence so we didn't have Ford Pintos and then we ended up with Toyotas and Teslas, I think we would all say that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's an action and a consequence. Removing liability from a corporation for a product they sell is the stupidest thing. It's unjustifiable. It's immoral. It's just the dumbest thing ever. But their position that they're outlining with RFK Jr.'s dangerous to public health because he could expose these companies to liability for their defective products.
Mm-hmm. Can you believe they've had immunity this whole time? I mean, I want to know what was going on back then, like who was in bed with who, to make the government decide that was a good idea.
Yeah. All right. Well,
it's crazy.
It is just nuts. So I hope I have it. Let me know if here, I'll turn this one
By
up.
the way, I just want to say hello to all the Peak Prosperity members. I saw a few names that I see Chris.
Yes, of course.
On there.
Hello,
and there
Chris.
are other folks. So just want to welcome everybody. It's so good to see some friendly faces, so to speak, in the names. And we're so glad you could join us this afternoon.
Thank you for that. Yes.
Awesome.
Hello to everybody. Hello, especially to all the Peak Prosperity members who've tuned in here for today. Glad to have you here. Now, Evie, I'm going to see if I can get your reaction to this one because we'll go this whole thing. I'm not going to read the rest of that because we're going into that later. So, Warren, you're going to hear her go full pharmatard. I kind of like how that rolls off the tongue.
Ooh, pharmatard.
Pharmatard.
Did you just make that up?
Yeah, I did, but never go full pharmatard.
All right. Hopefully I can hear it.
Okay, just make sure it's fully in your ear and let me know if you can't because you need to hear this.
I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies.
No,
and I'm not going to agree to that,
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
I'm not going to agree to not sue drug companies or anybody.
So let's do a quick count here of how, as Secretary of HHS, if you get confirmed, you could influence every one of those lawsuits. Well, let me start the list. You could publish your anti-vaccine conspiracies, but this time on U.S. government letterhead.
So, okay, let's just stop there. She's going full pharmatard. It was like, oh my God, you're going to try and get rich off of this. That's terrible. And your conspiracy theory. So they have nothing. They're digging deep into their immoral playbook and his character assassination. And I guarantee you, if you said, Liz, give us one example of a conspiracy theory, she would have nothing.
That's a conspiracy.
Yeah, they would have nothing. There's nothing there, right? It's just, that's how these people tend to roll. I've lost so much respect for everybody, but let's just agree that they're on the side of a religion. Like basically they're like, oh my gosh, RFK, you've basically said that what I consider to be the sacred liturgy of my religion might have been plagiarized or not real or just made up by humans in some fantastical like moment of hallucination. Like she's offended. Like look at the anger in this.
I know.
She's angry.
She's just she's in a fact-free world in her own mind too.
But
it's
she's
ridiculous.
Angry that he might make money at this. And of course, the last time Liz Warren talked about how Nancy Pelosi is getting stupid rich by all of her insider trading was exactly never but let's carry on.
And something a jury might be impressed by. You could appoint
I
people
don't
to the
understand that.
CDC vaccine panel who share your anti-vax views and let them do your dirty work. You could tell the CDC vaccine panel to remove a particular vaccine from the vaccine schedule. You could remove vaccines from special compensation programs, which would open up manufacturers to mass torts. You could make more injuries eligible for compensation, even if there is no causal evidence. You could change vaccine court processes to make it easier to bring junk lawsuits. You could turn over FDA data to your friends at the law firm, and they could use it however it benefited them. You could change vaccine labeling. You could change vaccine information rules. You could change which claims are compensated in the
Blows his
vaccine
nose.
injury compensation program. There's a lot of ways that you can influence those future lawsuits and pending lawsuits while you are Secretary of HHS. And I'm asking you to commit right now that you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits, so that what you do as secretary will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's
and
not the question. You and I, you have said
You're asking me.
repeatedly,
No,
I think you promised me.
I don't want you to comply with ethical guidelines. That's so anti-DC of you. That's not what I'm asking. What an angry harpy this woman is right
Oh,
now.
she's awful.
Senator, you're asking me not to
I am
sue
sorry.
vaccine
No,
pharmaceutical
I am
companies.
not. Mike,
Yeah, you are.
stop
That's exactly
infringing.
what you're doing.
No, look, no one should be fooled here.
I
As
fought back
Secretary
from-
of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country. And for all of his talk about follow the science and his promise that he won't interfere with those of us who want to vaccinate his kids, the bottom line is the same. Kennedy can kill off access to vaccines and make millions of dollars while he does it. Kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Oh,
Kids
Wow.
might die. So that's what they're going with. It's pretty impressive, right?
I'm just shocked. She's so triggered. But did you hear how she slipped
What?
about
What'd you pick up?
vaccinating how we'd like to vaccinate his kids?
Well, so this is a thing that one of they have several gotchas. They're like, wow, you've made a whole career suing pharmaceutical companies. He's made a whole career suing environmental destroying companies that dumped PCBs into the Hudson River. He's been an environmental activist, and he was one until a woman came up to him and said, have you ever heard about vaccines? And he looked into it. He's like, wow, this is really really bad.
Speaking of corruption, here, check this out.
Speaking of, but kids might die. Actually, kids are dying right now.
I know they are.
We have the worst health outcomes of any industrialized nation, and Liz Warren hasn't cared a whit about that. What she cares about is the power of her party, and some of that depends on the continued flow of money from the industries that she's now trying to protect. You are watching a full pharmaceutical sales rep
Yeah,
and lawyer legal side. I mean, that's what she's doing. She's protecting
I know.
pharma companies. That's the whole thing.
What's shocking to me is that they were on the same team.
Of course.
I don't know if any of her vitriol is from him deciding to change teams or what, but it seems unwarranted to me. I'm curious what other people think about it.
Yeah.
Senator, I support vaccines.
He's always said that.
I support the childhood schedule.
I'm a little
I
disappointed
will
to hear
do
that.
that. The only thing I want is good science, and
There
that's
it is.
it.
There it
How
is.
about then say you won't make money off what you do as Secretary of HHS?
Oh my God. Can we just stop? I mean, the Biden crime family,
I
get
know.
out. It's disgusting.
Oh, that would have been a great zinger if he came forward and said, listen, if it turns out I get in trouble, I'll just get a pardon.
I'll just follow in Biden's footsteps. It's okay.
For me and my whole family, dating back to
Seriously.
2014, right?
Who knows how many millions
This-
or billions of dollars?
Is disgusting. Absolutely
Ugh.
disgusting. So, hey, John Dixon saying there ought to be a vaccine for whatever rabid virus infected Senator Warren.
Amen.
I think there is. It's called getting voted out of office, getting humbled again. She's just been in DC too long,
Yeah.
and she's just
She's out. That's it. That's it. We'll get her out.
yeah.
The end.
Yep. Yes. Let's go with this. Warren is abhorrent. Yeah, absolutely. 100% with you on that.
Somebody else is saying,
This is crazy when you run into stuff like Funky Wanderer saying my unvaccinated child is the healthiest kid I've ever met. So back to this for a second. We saw that, this is true. When I was in school, we didn't have a whole room full of special ed kids, right? We didn't have people walking around in helmets and, wheelchairs and 30% of the class coming in with medical folders this thick with pill breaks throughout the day.
Ritalin, yeah.
That just wasn't a thing. Wasn't a thing. In fact,
wasn't for me either.
my health plan as a kid involved never going to my mom when I was actually bleeding. That was a rule me and my friends had. Like we would take care of it ourselves, shoelaces, moss, whatever was available. It worked fine. It was all good. At any rate.
It changed with my generation, I think. Like, I think my brother was actually vaccine insured.
Yeah, I think so too. It's quite possible.
My middle brother.
Yeah.
He was never okay.
Yeah.
After taking all those.
All right.
I know. I can tell that you're really wound up about it, and rightly so. It's awful.
She triggered me. So I'm wondering, so this is also from that Wall Street Journal editorial here. And so what they're saying here is that, he has tried to soften his vaccine skepticism since being nominated. And now he says he won't take away anyone's vaccines. He says he merely wants to ensure that vaccines are safe and thoroughly studied. Who doesn't? Well, obviously we all want that. That's what he's saying. And most people are surprised to find out that vaccines are not only not thoroughly studied, they're almost not studied at all.
They've never been.
And not individually, but specifically not in combination where they stack up. Right. So that's why I was a little disappointed to hear him say that, he wanted to keep the childhood vaccine schedule. I'm like, no, I think we should get rid of Hep B at birth.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
There's no point in trying to vaccinate a neonate because they don't have an immune system yet. Like, go ahead and jam all that aluminum and stuff in there, but they can't mount an appropriate response anyway.
And they're not having sex and using IV drugs. So
there's that. Yeah, there's that too. Of course. I mean, but what besides that?
But what's shocking is when you hear about how the children that grew up Amish, who don't have any of these vaccines, they don't have any of these other illnesses that our children, the vaccinated population struggles with. So that alone just should make you pause and stop and think about it. Right.
We're just discussing data and opinions and things like that. I already can tell, like, this may get us a strike on YouTube.
Okay.
I can feel it. And I didn't terminate that portion of the stream. But if it happens, you know what? Good riddance. You know what? I'm all done, creating great content for an evil beastie machine that is actively conspiring to harm the health of our children. It's just evil. It just is.
And if this reaches...
This is a moral issue. This really is.
It's a huge moral issue. And if this reaches one parent out there who decides not to vaccinate their children...
Just one, right.
Or decides to look into it for themselves, it's worth it.
Yeah. Well, look at this now. In at the bottom, nominees disclosures how show he's received millions of dollars from referring clients to Wisner Baum and Morgan & Morgan, law firms that have sued vaccine and drug makers for defective products, by the way. Right. The reason you get millions of dollars is you win a case. You don't get millions of dollars for referring dud cases that like they had legit cases.
Yeah, he'd clean it up.
Yep. That's all. It's just, Wisner Baum says here, spearheaded litigation against Merck over its Gardasil vaccine, which protects against the human papillomavirus, one of the biggest risk factors for cervical cancer. Yeah. Here's the problem. It turned out it was a wildly unsafe product too. Harmed a lot of people.
Yeah,
right?
do you know why it did? Not to get into the weeds.
No, let's not do that right now. It's a whole complicated story, but suffice it to say that when they tested it for what we'll call their safety profile, it was like 148 kids for like a week or something.
Ugh.
Like just not statistically significant enough and not long enough to really figure anything out. But that's their tricks. That is one of their tricks. So we're going to carry on real quick. This is Ron Wyden. I'm going to call him a profile in cowardice, but this is just, when did health of our children become a partisan issue? One side saying we care about the health of your children. The other side saying I'm really worried that pharma profits are going to get harmed in some way
Mhm. When did health get politicized at all?
at all.
I mean, I was aware of it, and I'm sure many other people were when COVID happened.
Yeah,
That's when it seemed to come to the surface that something was awry. But
I know.
was it before that? That's a good question.
I don't know. How
It's sick.
about this one? Can
It's so sick.
you read that from there?
Yes, Democrats have lost the moral authority to lead this situation, is why the Second Amendment exists.
Pro pass.
And
Yes.
Amen.
So I'm so happy we still have a Second Amendment, and that's a red line issue for me. No crossing that.
Mm-mm.
It's obvious that yeah,
Can we
things are
recall
bad.
these people?
And by the way, Will Wise is Wyden too, one of the most obnoxious human beings in Congress. By the way, let's go there. Let's satisfy your comment here, Will, and we're going to talk about Ron Wyden and let's let him speak for himself.
Know that Mr. Kennedy has embraced conspiracy theories, quacks, charlatans, especially when it comes to the safety and efficacy of vaccines. He has made it his life's work to sow doubt and discourage parents from getting their kids life-saving vaccines. It has been lucrative for him and put him on the verge of immense power. This is the profile of someone who chases money and influence wherever they lead, even if that may mean the tragic deaths of children and other vulnerable people.
Wow. Wow.
So just
I don't even know what to say.
he's just been chasing power and money, says the
So that
guy
Mr. Kennedy
who's been in office for 44 years.
And Kennedy's up there saying, I don't need this job. Like, I don't. He's
44 years he's been sucking on the public teat for money and power. He's like, so I know what I'm talking about here.
trust me. Trust me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Christine Parma, what do you got here? Wyden is one of the reasons we left Oregon. A-hole. Good job getting out. Oregon, a great state to leave. No,
Wow.
Ron Wyden, just terrible. Oh boy, this guy is something else, says CJ. So wow. But that's who he is. So we've heard it here several times now. Conspiracy theories. He's going to
That's
lead to
the
dead
label.
children. Okay.
Tragic.
All right. So I think we just have to do a little blast from the past here. We got to go back to something very quickly, which is this. This is RFK looking pretty relaxed. He's on the set here of the Sean Ryan show. And this was a really powerful few minutes right here. This was sort of when he got started in this whole thing. So let's just listen in. And this when they say he's just peddling conspiracy theories. No, everything RFK Jr., everything I've ever looked at that he's done, everything, I chase it down and it's factual and it's sourced. 100%. I have not yet found a thing. He's one of the most careful people I know.
Well, his book.
Right. Yeah. His book should have gotten him sued 10 times over if it was false about
That's right.
the real Anthony Fauci, obviously, and not a single peep has been said because it's actually accurate. So let's go into this.
You know, there's a number of things that happened in 1989, but it's those diseases, all these autoimmune diseases suddenly appeared. I never knew anybody with juvenile diabetes. When I was a kid, a typical pediatrician would see one case of juvenile diabetes in his career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door has it. Something happened. Why isn't anybody talking about this? Rheumatoid arthritis suddenly exploded, lupus, all these autoimmune diseases, Crohn's disease, these exotic diseases.
Yep.
Nobody ever heard of when I was a kid. Now they're everywhere. And so you have allergic diseases, you have neurological disease and autoimmune diseases, and obesity suddenly appear around 1989. And so there's a number of things that could be blamed for it. Well, the CDC thought it may be the vaccine schedule. Let's check. So they looked at one vaccine, which is the hepatitis B vaccine.
Here it goes.
They looked at kids who had gotten it in the first 30 days, And then they
30 days.
looked at kids who had not gotten it in 30 days. In other words, kids who got it later or didn't get it at all. And they compared these two groups. And among the kids who got it in the first 30 days, there was I think it was a 10,000% increased risk for a later subsequent autism diagnosis if you got in the first 30 days.
Wow.
So they immediately knew what was causing it. Oh, I know it was 11.35. So it's 1,135% increased risk. And
Isn't it?
so they knew immediately, it's called a relative risk of 11.35. If you have a relative risk of 2, causation is presumed. This was 11.35.
So let's stop right there. So we'll come back to it. So first thing you do when the most important thing you just said is anything with a hazard or an elevated risk of 2. So it's got a 200%. Causation is presumed, not correlation. Causation is presumed. Right. So if you get a 15%, that's a hazard ratio of 1.15 or 1.2. Once 20%, we don't know. It could have just been correlated. It might be something else. Could be multifactorial. But once it gets to 2, in our medical system, causation is therefore presumed. This had an associated risk of 11.7. This risk went to 11.
How can they deny that?
So that I just want to make sure we're all clear. That's what he's just brought forward. Is they finally looked at this data and said, okay, we're going to look at kids who got that Hep B vaccine within the first 30 days. And we're going to compare them to people who got it after that or not at all. And we saw, and I wish they had just compared the clean group, never got it versus got it, and then compared that. But that's just within the first 30 days because they were trying to justify putting this stuff into, because it used to be you were in your teenage years and you might get the Hep B vaccine if you had a risk profile, which is what again?
Sex, having sex or using IV drugs.
Yeah,
right?
it's kind of a communicable blood to blood kind of a thing.
Like we had to get it before we went to college. I had to get it before I tried to enroll in the nursing program. That was like a prereq.
Nursing, because you could run the risk of getting a stick, right?
Probably.
Or something. So you would have a higher risk. But anyway, it used to just be sort of specialty case and later in life. And then all of a sudden they decided, let's give it to every single baby before they leave the hospital after they're born. And so, wow, hey, let's take a look at that is the thing. So that's what he's just said. And what happened next?
The link between cigarettes, smoking a pack of cigarettes a day for 20 years and getting lung cancer is a relative risk of 10. This was 11.35. So they knew what it was. And then they had an emergency meeting that they called.
So did you get that? They got this really killer data and they spent the second day, it was just how do they hide this all from the American public? That is what Ron Wyden is standing for. That is what Liz Warren is standing for.
Mm-hmm.
That's what everybody who's against RFK is standing for, obviously, at this point in time. They're offended by the idea that you might expose this because it makes them look terrible. And then their money train dries up and their power dries up. And of course, they have to answer the most important question, which is, why didn't you do something about this while you were in power? 44 years, Mr. Ron Wyden. You had access to all this stuff. You could have looked into it. You could have had your staffers take a peek at this, but they didn't do that. Okay.
They didn't want to know.
They just didn't want to know. They didn't want to know something like this. So can you read that out from
Yes.
Larry the Logger? Hey, Larry.
Yes, this is what I wanted to
Always
read.
good to have you here.
In 1990, 3 days after my son got a bank of vaccines from the doctor's office, I sat next to his bed crying, wondering how he went from normal to catatonic. He's severely autistic.
Oh man, Larry, I'm so sorry.
It's awful. I remember fighting them when I was a young mom.
It's
And,
heartbreaking.
With the Hep B thing, and they
It's
gave me such a hard
infuriating.
time. They abuse you,
Mhm.
and they are very pushy. They
Yep.
talk about throwing you out of a practice, and if you're a new parent, that's really scary,
Yeah.
and you don't understand.
No.
I mean, Good
So
grief.
Larry, I'm so sorry.
It's awful.
It's awful. And
Nobody
It's-
should have to go through that.
no, at any rate, this is this. Yeah, I got to move on. This is hard. This is hard, but this is why this is so important. So I did something that I've never done. So I've run Peak Prosperity for 19 years. I've had an email list,
Mhm.
and we very rarely tap that. And just to let people know, if they sign up for the newsletter, okay, they get that because they opted in. But if they opt out, fine. I never go buy this. I'm not tapping that email list. Well, yesterday I sent one out that was like, hey, can you please call your senator? We got to get RFK Jr. in. We've got to create the political pressure for this. I did that because it's that
Mhm.
important. We've never had an opportunity this good in my entire lifetime to finally put these demons on their back heels
Mhm.
and get them out of our lives, making us sick, because that's what they've been doing.
That is.
So, all right, this will totally get the website. I mean, sorry, the YouTube channel scrubbed, but whatever. The business model includes giving things to kids that will turn them into lifetime customers. That's how it looks. That's an opinion. I'm free to hold that because I can show you that the explosion in lifetime medications, whether it's SSRIs, other psychotropics, immune, drugs, or now, surprise, one of the hottest growing segments besides cancer drugs right now is treating lifetime heart damage, myocarditis, one of the fastest growing
Wow.
product categories. If you show me the incentive, I will show you the outcome. So says Warren Buffett's right-hand man, Charlie Munger.
Mhm.
There are people who are incentivized for us to be sick. That's all. That's
Mhm.
it.
Yep.
For the love of money is the root of all evil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can we talk about that? We have a money problem in our country. We have people who don't know the difference between money and morality.
No.
They're broken. They're just broken people.
Or money and real wealth, which, as you know, and I know, and a lot of our Peak Prosperity members know, it's much more than money
Yeah.
to be wealthy, to actually
Yep.
have wealth and prosperity.
By the way, just for fun,
Do you think he's going to get confirmed?
I don't know, but you can see the machinery is already. Somebody took this shot while the hearing is going on. And noted that she'd already written her whole article here.
What?
And the headline reads, RFK Jr. faces grilling on anti-vaccine comments and animal mutilation at confirmation hearing. So that's what they went with, even before anything had happened. Hey, quick guess on your part, Evie.
Yeah.
If you had to guess well, you can see the race there because of the fingertips, but take a guess. Give me a demographic. What do you think? Just off the top of your head. What are we looking at here?
Like, whose is
Yeah,
this?
who's on the other side of that keyboard? Take a guess.
I mean, if it's leaking, it's got to be somebody.
No. I mean, I'm just demographics, age, gender. What are we talking about here?
Oh. A dude.
Really?
I don't know.
Nah, surprise.
Oh,
It's a white liberal woman.
yeah, but how does that help? Oh, I just don't understand how that helps anything. It makes Elizabeth Warren look crazy and
Well,
like preemptively trying to tank everything.
yeah. Well, let's go. Want to go full crazy?
Oh no. Can we not? Oh, this was so painful to listen to.
So Carolyn Kennedy, a cousin, and this is the daughter of JFK and Robert F. Kennedy, obviously Jr., son of Robert
who also
Kennedy, which was
used
the
to own our
brother.
house.
Oh yeah, fun fact. This house right here was owned by Carolyn Kennedy and Ed Schlossberg for a period of time. And that Schlossberg name, we're going to look at that in just a second because it does factor in here a tiny bit. But yes, we have actually materials in our house here that were left by them.
Mhm.
We've got canceled checks and
Signatures
signatures and a surprising a stack of letters and everything, which who knows, maybe someday those will be relevant. But here's what she said. She said, and by the way, she's got those glasses you have to wear when you finally get old enough. You go to some old person glass store. I'll have to visit it soon. I'll have the big giant
Oh, that like
tortoiseshell glasses, but hers, I'm not sure those are, I think her
Magnifies
fashion
your eyeballs.
stylist needs I'm just going to editorially say, I'm not sure that little peak in the bridge there is like doing her any favors, but that's just a thing. So she said He led siblings and cousins down the path of drug addiction. So that must have been when he was a much younger man, and he's owned up to that. But a lot of people, surprise, had addiction issues early in life, and he's gotten past them. So she's holding that against him. That says he's gone on to lie and cheat his way through life, but she provided zero examples of that. Okay. Just character assassination. You praise on the desperation of parents and sick children. Don't know what that means. He's addicted to attention and power, she says here, peacocking out and he's a predator. He's a predator. So, and notice on the lower, do you see down there, Evie, on the lower left, do you see way down there? That comes from Jack Schlossberg's Instagram. So that's her son.
Her son. Yeah.
Let's take a quick peek at Jack real quick. Let's find out what kind of person he is here. Here he is.
Hey, everybody. I'm trying to figure out the right present to get Donald Trump for the inauguration. So
here he is making fun of his uncle's dysphonia.
Is that what that is?
Yeah.
I was actually wondering if he had the same issue.
No. I mean, he's giving me a little bit of the, I know, right?
Wow.
Huh?
He seems like he's on something.
Can you imagine
It's like tweaked out.
so your uncle has a disability, right? That he didn't ask for the dysphonia. He probably got it from a vaccine injury.
That's what he said,
right? And you go out, this is even before all of this stuff. He's just going out and making fun of that because that's the kind of person he is, right? That's her son.
Evil. It's evil.
That's who these people are. And I know these people because we live in Massachusetts and they're part of that whole Marblehead, Gayhead, Martha's Vineyard. They try and pretend like they're this royalty. They talk with this clip lip, thing to pretend they're royalty. But her grandfather made all his money by being he was
in the mob, right?
He was mafia, right? Joe Kennedy ran rum, killed people, did all of that. Very storied past. But now they're remaking themselves into this austere royal family. But pro tip: royal families keep their shit to themselves.
That's true.
They don't go out and try and character assassinate each other out in public. This is just, she is displaying all of that. Like, I guess.
TDS.
Look, you can take the mobs, you can take the mobster out of Boston, but I guess you can't take the mobster out of the family. This is gangster stuff right here. This is nasty. This is full on.
Nasty.
It's awful.
It's such betrayal.
Listen to this again.
Everybody. I'm trying to figure out the right present to get Donald Trump for the inauguration. So I found a really rare animal and killed it, and I'm going to give it to him.
I don't know what the octopus has to do with anything. I'm sure that has some meaning to him. I don't know. If anybody knows, let us know. I don't get it. But that's what we're up to here. And by the way, this Jack Schlossberg, which I love Twitter because you can go back and find stuff. I'm not even going to read that out because that will definitely a Maha energy ball consists of these things.
Oh my gosh.
I know, huh?
People are. Jack said that?
Yep. Whoa. What a distinguished royal family these people are. We should definitely listen to what he and his mother have to say about everything.
Ugh, that's
Ew.
that's really bad.
Really
Wow.
bad. Now she called him a predator though, right? So she calls RFK a predator. So she might know a thing or two about predators. I'm just wondering, maybe just the wrong sort of predator. Maybe she prefers this predator here. 26 trips on Lolita Express and plenty of visits down to
Was she?
Epstein Island. No,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
Bill Clinton.
No, I know Bill Clinton did. I just
Or
didn't know if she
maybe,
did.
maybe she meant this predator. Maybe she meant this one. Harvey, no jab, no job, the original progenitor of that philosophy. Maybe that, or wait, no, maybe Ted. Just you drive a car off of a bridge and you leave your date to drown while you go off and try and cover the whole thing up. This is clearly, you can see she's got some very high standards here. So pretty amazing. Now what's interesting is she went through all of that stuff, talked about what a bad guy RFK Jr. is, and she forgot to disclose her conflicts of interest. And Jordan Schachtel sort of dug him up here and found out that she holds significant positions and even board positions in several of these companies, including Bristol Myers Squibb, Eli Lilly and Company, and Johnson & Johnson.
What is Bristol Myers Squibb? I don't actually know.
Just another pharma company.
Is it?
Yeah. Ew, this is gross. So, like I said, what's fascinating to me is that this whole episode with RFK is now revealing things. It didn't create anything. It's revealing the extent to which we in this country have allowed these sorts of demons to take over, and they felt untouchable. And I think they're scared right now, and they're thrashing about, and they didn't have anything. So here's one thing that you did not see. You did not see a single one of these attacks against RFK, which talked about his childhood, when he was a younger man, just vague assertions, no data. What they have not done is they have not gone through and actually come up with here's something he said that's wrong, and here's the proof that it's wrong, because here's different or better data. They didn't take him on a single, none of this was at the level of data. This was all at the level of character assassination, because they got nothing.
No,
They got nothing at the deeper level. If they had it, they would use it. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I think you're
anyway,
right.
that's where we're at on that. Okay. We're going to switch gears now. And where does the time go? I love these signal hours. They're fun. We got to talk about the Trump blitz real quick here, because this is nothing short of astonishing. So we saw, in the first 100 hours of Trump, I believe this is an actual strategy. I support the strategy. The strategy is you have an entrenched deep state, and I'm going to call an associated deep state, and you got to root them out. Well, in battlefield tactics, you drop bombs everywhere, false feints, you try stuff. We've been talking about this with my subscribers back at Peak Prosperity for a while, but this is an interesting sort of a strategy here. First declaring there's only two genders. Oh no, there's going to be some mass confusion amongst the ranks out there. Began renegotiating international trade deals. Maybe we're taking Denmark. Haha, Canada, 51st state. All that stuff. Put Russia on notice to end the war or face more sanctions, getting putting the foot down on that. Thousands of U.S. troops on the border to tighten up the border again. Declared border cartels as terrorist organizations. So they decided, not so smartly, to maybe take a few shots. I don't think that's going to work out super well for them. Just started to dismantle Obamacare and issued an executive order to begin to open up the ANWR, that's the Alaska National Wildlife Refuge, to drilling for more oil, and terminating DEI immediately across the government, including firing the Coast Guard commander for caring about that stuff more than that. Now, that's interesting. That's an interesting strategy. But if you're fighting the deep state, you don't want to fight them straight up, because they create things like Russiagate and weaponize, Department of Justice against you, and find their loyal allies inside the FBI to just come up with, stupid stuff. He learned his lesson. Trump spent 4 years carefully curating and thinking about and learning those lessons. And so that leads to stuff like this. This was an email that went out to all employees at the EPA. And it says, quote, "We are aware of efforts by some in government to disguise these DEI programs by using coded or imprecise language. If you are aware of a change in any contract description or personnel position description since 5th November 24, to obscure the connection between the contract and DEI or similar ideologies, please report all facts and circumstances to this email within 10 days. There will be no adverse consequences for timely reporting of this information. However, failure to report this information within 10 days may result in adverse consequences." That's how you do it, folks. Right there. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. You get them squaring off of each other. You receive that email. Everybody at the EPA got that. So let's imagine you're my boss and I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, she told me to change the name of my position from chief diversity officer to, senior contract lead. And I know I did that. I'm like, are you going to turn me in, or should I turn you in, or will my underlings turn me in? Like, it creates like this,
Yeah, it does.
that chaos, right?
People are on notice.
Yeah.
Oh, Ben, did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
You-
Of course we watch Landman. We're big Taylor Sheridan fans at this point. You guys watch Landman, was good. Apparently the cartel missed it. Lol. They did. And by the way, everybody should watch Landman for the windmill scene alone. Spouting truths. Good stuff.
It is.
All right. So you had this EPA email here. And let's carry on. So how about this? So President Trump just sent out to all federal employees, Evie.
Yes.
You're going to have to pay attention to this.
All
You
right,
can
all
look for
right,
that
I
in just a
gotcha.
minute, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Below is the email sent to federal employees on the 28th of January, 2025, presenting deferred resignation offer. If you want, you can get paid out through September. Very generous severance offer. And it says, hey, if you did not respond to that email and wish to accept the Yeah, and wanted to accept the deferred resignation offer, you may do so by following these steps. Send an email to hr@opm.gov from your government account. Only an email from your gov account will be accepted. Type the word resign into the subject line. Hit send.
Hit send.
Hit send.
Oh my gosh. Got that email.
Oh,
Interesting.
did you? You got that email? Wow. Did you hit send? Inquiring minds want to know. That's amazing. So that's how you do it. Okay. Now, what's fascinating is that actually it goes way beyond this, Evie. This is super fascinating. So that was part one. But as I said, this is a multi-pronged salvo. So get this. It turns out, no, wait. Hold up. I got to go to something else first. All right. Let's go here first, and then I'll go back up to this other one. So it turns out from Data Republican, he said, after spending too much time on the government award search tool, I'm starting to wonder if we've had a universal basic income or UBI system all along for one political party just disguised as grants. So we know about how much government employment there is. Tantum writing, it was already known that 13.4% of Americans work directly for the government, but what if we turn out there's 12.8 million nonprofit, 12.8 million
all
nonprofit
the NGOs and stuff?
Well, also subsisting entirely off of government grants. So the total could be 24%. That means 3 of us have to work to pay taxes to pay for a 4th person. Can you imagine if you're on a street and every 4th house was just like, you guys got to pay me. You got to pay my mortgage, house, send my kids to school, my groceries.
That's
3
just wrong.
families working to support a 4th family. That's what that means, because there's no such thing as government money. It's all your money and my money. There's no such thing as government money. The government has no money. It has taxpayer money.
Has
Full
our
stop.
money.
Has our money. Okay. So,
And your money.
so then Trump orders this massive spending freeze, right? All federal funding is on hold, right? All of everything. Federal agencies halt the disbursement of grants and loans. So this means he was aware of this dynamic, that there's 12.8 million nonprofit folks. And by the way, when you look at it, this is almost entirely a Democrat make-work program.
Oh, I know.
This is really heavily blue. So
Mhm.
when we talk about the deep state, oh no, what is the FBI? Well, there's the FBI plus 12.8 million people out there squawking and making noise and fighting you, right? So first thing you do, you put everything on freeze. This is a quality battlefield tactic right here. That's what just happened.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. Now,
Seems like he's shocked.
yeah,
He's using a shock and awe kind of, because you got to get people into a position where they're feeling nervous about,
yeah.
doing the right thing or not, or
Well,
you have to start making an example, I think.
well, look at this one. This just came out 14 hours ago, as of this morning when I pulled it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
Good. Yes.
Our nation will no longer fund, sponsor, promote, assist, or support so-called gender-affirming care, and this specifically applies to minors,
Mm-hmm.
right? No, we're just not doing that anymore. Okay, fine. So, you know what's fascinating about this? There was this just gigantic meltdown over on Reddit. Really astonishing. So Andrew writing, the left is deeply dependent on an endless supply of taxpayer cash to left-wing activists. It's a big thing. So I'm going to bust out my Schadenfreude here, because I do not like unproductive people, feasting on my tax dollars. This is in Reddit. So this is an r/Washington, D.C. And it's from Joe Bob 12. I'm
me
about
to
to
read
be laid off. It's going to be hard to contain my
Do you want me to read
Schadenfreude on this one.
Never
Yeah.
mind. You can read it.
All right. So thanks to the executive orders issued by our greatest American patriot president and his overwhelming mandate of 49.9%, you can feel the sarcasm dripping here. My company is going under because nothing screams America first, quite like making thousands of American unemployed, right? Okay, unemployed at what? What do you do? Quote, anyway, I spent my entire 13-year career in the field of international development.
What is
I have
that?
no skills or experience outside of this field. Nobody knows. He doesn't even know. And every job I have gotten has been through niche, industry-specific sites like DevX or ReliefWeb, and these sites won't be any use to me because the entire international development industry is being destroyed. So people of DC, where do normal people find normal jobs? Is it really as brutal as toiling through LinkedIn or Glassdoor? I have no idea where to look or what kind of jobs to even think about. The panic is real.
Wow.
There's millions of
You
people.
really, you think that's a real person?
I do. Because I found lots that are just kind of like that.
Wow.
So here's the idea that we've had lots of people who've been working in these NGO government funded jobs, right?
Mhm.
Billions and billions and billions of dollars supporting tens of million, 12.8 million people up to potentially. And they're doing things like international development. That's mostly making PowerPoints and phone calls,
Yeah.
for something. I don't know. But I do think that if we want to make America great again, if we want to get back to something, we have a huge challenge in front of us. We're going to have to be productive again. We're going to have to stop doing nonsense things, right? We're going to have to start seeing people do real things. Like I don't know what to tell this person.
Hmm.
I don't have skills, they say. I don't really know. Like, I don't even know how to look for a job. It's going to be challenging.
Yep.
Joe Bob 12.
They've got a journey ahead of them.
They do.
Probably.
A lot of people do.
Yeah.
I'm okay with this. I totally am.
I think so too.
And by the way, we've been suffering under for a long time. It's just gaslighting, constant sort of gaslighting, and from the Biden administration. That's how I felt. Like obviously we suffered under censorship, right?
Mhm,
Obviously, we had to put up with just nonsense, right? Like we're sending 200 billion of your taxpayer dollars to Ukraine for democracy. And we're like, well, that doesn't even make sense because it's not a democratic place,
Right.
even
And meanwhile,
slightly.
we have homeless people on our own streets and
Correct.
bridges falling apart. And
We're all safer because we've allowed the borders to be open. But oh, by the way, who else remembers one of my favorite moments? I want to find a way to be as happy in my life someday as the Martha Vineyard people were when they were waving for the migrants to get off their island.
that was kind of awesome.
They were really happy. Remember that?
Yeah, that was great.
So carrying on, this was one of the most profound gaslighting moments. Who remembers the drones over Jersey? Remember that?
Yeah, that just happened.
Yeah. Did you hear this yet? I don't know if you have.
I did.
This is worth
I
listening
did.
to.
And before I turn to questions, I do have news directly from the President of the United States that was just shared with me in the Oval Office from President Trump directly, an update on the New Jersey drones. After research and study, the drones that were flying over New Jersey in large numbers were authorized to be flown by the FAA for research and various other reasons.
And various other reasons, like terrorizing the population, research. I don't know. Anyway,
And nobody could just come out and say that.
no, worse than that. They told us the opposite of that. They said, we don't know. They're not a threat, but we don't know what they are. That's what they said. That it was a psyop. But is this a psyop on top of, who knows what that whole thing was?
Yeah.
But it was used in certain ways to terrorize the population and to get them all excited and distracted and all that stuff. They ran them at night, blinking lights. You were supposed to see them.
I know.
They didn't clear up any of the confusion. They wouldn't answer questions from local authorities. And then they just went forward and said, we don't know what they are, but they're not, don't worry about them. Anyways, all BS.
Do you ever feel like they're just jerking your chain though?
All the time.
All this stuff,
Yeah,
all of it
all
is
of it.
just kabuki theater. It's all BS. I don't think we actually have the truth of any of it.
Yep.
And I don't think we'll ever know. And I think it's this real-time play that's taking place that we get to watch the performance of.
Yeah.
And it's meant to get us all charged up and upset.
Yep.
I know that it's meant to do that. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
we don't get other things done in our lives. We don't take good care of ourselves. We get stressed out. I was ready to rip my hair out yesterday I went on Facebook, which was a huge mistake. And I was like, I don't know what happened to all the people I love. Like,
Oh, I know.
it shocked me how like
Yeah.
women were freaking out. And I don't know. I just think it's good to keep in perspective that like our immediate concerns are probably really important.
They are.
More important than all of this other stuff.
Well, I do think the healing has begun.
Mhm.
And the reason I think that is because of this. This also got signed. Trump halts
Oh,
gain of
yeah,
function
that
research.
felt-
Okay, that's great.
that is awesome.
Yes, we absolutely should not be in the business of trying to make pathogens more pathogenic. Life is hard enough. We don't need these people who obviously don't know how to run labs. And, the kindest I can be is that COVID escaped from the lab. The unkindest I can be is they let it go because they had a big business model attached to it, right? And I don't have the data to. They're both hypotheses. They're actually both open hypotheses at this point in time. But speaking of which, did you notice this? The CIA came out and said, "Oh, yeah, you know what? Maybe COVID did leak from a lab, right?" And listen, obviously, that was easy to figure out a long time ago, right? Early 2020, by the time I'd figured out and started reading the right people, I figured it out and looked at the genetic code. May 4th, 2020, I said, hey, here you go. Here you go. In fact, that's what I said. I said on May 4th, I said, the press just needs to do one thing only until it's answered. How did that polybasic furin cleavage site, PRRA, which is proline, arginine, asparagine, get into COVID-19? That's it. That was the whole thing. That was it. That was the whole thing. I figured that out because I had a Comcast connection. I'm reasonably certain that the CIA had better connections than that, right? But they chose to lie to us. They chose to lie. In fact, it also came out kind of awkwardly that the CIA had paid its analysts to change their position, because any analyst who's not a complete dunce, in which case they shouldn't be earning a CIA paycheck, anybody who wasn't a complete dunce came to the same conclusion I did early in spring of 2020. And so did those CIA analysts, but they paid them to change their mind.
And they paid scientists too, indirectly, by, the scientists are worried that their funding's going to go away unless they, tout the party line.
Yeah, and if you lied for the lab, for the natural origin, like Christian Anderson and Robert Gary and all those virologists,
grants.
They got these huge grants, $8, $9, $10 million grants. So they were paid to play, to spin this tale. And you know what? This is a good first step. This is what needs to happen. You halt the gain of function research. Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of cads. I hope they all lose their jobs. In fact, I hope many of them go to prison. They need to go to prison. They just, be very clear. There are people out there who need to go to prison, which is why when we look back at the pardons, I hope we don't just skate past that, but we have these pardons that Biden issued out for Fauci that went back to January 1st, 2014. That is guaranteed, full stop, no question about it, related to this information right here. It's about the gain of function research. There was a ban in 2014. They decided to skirt the ban. They ended up creating this thing, whether accidental or intentional, we can resolve that later, but it was created in a lab and it came out and it harmed a lot of people. And they used it as an excuse to force the vaccine mandates upon people. So when you put the whole thing together at one spot, now do you understand why Liz Warren is so scared? Why Ron Wyden is so scared? Everybody, let me be very clear about this. Everybody who opposes RFK Jr. is in some way complicit in this darkness we just went through. And if we don't somehow fix that, and I think we have to have accountability, I think there has to be consequences. If we don't fix that, we just get to experience it all over again. We'll
New cycle.
We just one more time.
Wash, rinse, repeat.
Maybe with a worse pathogen next time. I don't know.
Well, I like what Nicole Shanahan said. Did you see what she said? She said, I'm paying attention. I'm watching all you people and how you vote today. And I will make it my mission to make sure you're not elected. So hopefully they're able to hear the people in this story. If they're not, they're going to suffer the consequences.
Yes.
So there will be consequences, hopefully, eventually.
Right. Well, I hope so. And by the way, these were in some comments that were under this piece right here. Somebody posted this thing, and thank you, Michael Gaston, for going back to that. And because I would have had to otherwise dig through and find these conclusions. Hard to go back to May 4th, 2020 in YouTube. They make it hard. There's a lot of pages you have to scroll past. So Michael Gaston did it. Thank you so much for doing that. And then under that, people put some comments here about that COVID coverage, right? And Pet Snail saying in particular, can't tell you how many times I shared this video. That's the video about the lab leak over the last 5 years. Thank you for covering this before anyone else, and to date more in depth than anyone else. Yes, it's just context. It's context, and it's what logical, clear thinking can get you to. It sometimes leads to conclusions that are out of step with what the machine wants, what the deep state wants. It puts you at risk. It definitely exposes you. We're running a risk. We have been. In fact, if Trump hadn't been elected, I think the risk is reduced now to some extent. I hope.
Maybe.
I hope. We'll see.
It's a limited hangout situation. They're going to let us.
No, I think history shows the CIA is usually pretty cheerful about being crossed up. Oh no, wait. That was a fantasy novel I was reading. Wasn't right. So
I have something to read, by the way.
all right.
for you.
Last slide, and then Evie's going to read to close this out. So this was interesting. Trump also halted more than $300 billion in U.S. green infrastructure funding, air quotes, because green infrastructure is not really actually green when you look at the blight that solar panels can produce if they're put on productive farmland. And also, the windmills they're not green. In fact, countries that really pursue so-called green energy without any real understanding of the physics involved, of the laws involved, of economics, they find that their electricity costs go up, not down. Their grids become less stable, not more. It's not to say that green energy doesn't have a place. It just doesn't, it's a bit player. It should come on the stage and say a couple lines. You wouldn't want to give it the lead role. It's not ready for that. It can't do that. I'm glad to see that we're going to maybe get some sense back into this. If I was going to have my way, we're going to be putting out a huge amount of effort into small modular nuclear reactors. I really hope we get there. Nuclear is the shape of the future. A lot of people have misconceptions about that. That is about to be rewritten. I just recorded today, just before this, an incredible interview with Adam Rosenzweig of Gehring and Rosenzweig. It's brilliant, and talk about where the United States really is in terms of energy, where we really are in the shale story. And we also talk about that nuclear issue towards the end. Invite you to take a look at that. That's a part of my Finance U offerings. And for everybody else, please come by Peak Prosperity and all of that. So Evie, what do you got for us here?
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, hey, David, that winter night over there, he's asking, how he's from Italy, and he's asking how the poor souls in Europe can boost their resiliency. And I was just going to add that I think going over to Peak Prosperity and just discussing whatever concerns you have with the tribe there's a huge body of knowledge that we've accumulated over the years, everything from how to, homestead and procure your own food to managing your economics and all of that. It's managing your finances. It's great. So
absolutely.
And mostly the people there are wonderful. So
yeah,
you get to meet some like-minded souls.
And hey, Europe, just buckle up. I mean, as many predicaments and problems as the U.S. has, Europe's light years ahead of us in some regards. And so listen, right now, the collapse that's going on around Germany because they can't figure out that shutting down their nuclear plants was not a good idea, and that crossing up their main gas supplier in Russia was not a good idea, and they can't figure it out. And they're just going to double down on the failed narrative. And they are busy deindustrializing right now. And it's really going to create a lot of hardship and a ripple effect across Europe. So if I was in Italy, I'd be talking into the ear of Meloni and others like her to say, maybe it's time to cut the lines to the tender ship to the main ship. Go it alone, because, I think that's going to be one of your best chances and to the extent Italy can't go it alone in your community, your local community. And to the extent that can't work, it's down to your own homestead. So that's what we preach. Resilience begins here, begins with you, begins at the local level, and it spreads from there.
Okay. So to bring us back around to something else, I like to read things at the end of these, our Chris's presentations. It's grounding. And I hope that wherever you are today, that you find yourself able to reflect on what really matters in your life and to find joy in the small things around you, because that's what keeps us all going. The thing I want to read is from, I never know how to say this, Rainer Maria Rilke. And she says, "We have no reason to harbor any mistrust against our world, for it is not against us. If it has terrors, they are our terrors. If it has abysses, these abysses belong to us. If there are dangers, we must try to love them. And only if we arrange our lives in accordance with the principle which tells us that we must always trust in the difficult, what now appears to us as the most alien will become our most intimate and trusted experience. How could we forget those ancient myths that stand at the beginning of all races, the myths about dragons that at the last moment are transformed into princesses? Perhaps all the dragons in our lives are princesses who are only waiting to see us act just once with beauty and courage. perhaps everything that frightens us is, in its deepest essence, something helpless that wants our love.
Beautiful. Courage is contagious, of course. And so for everybody who's watching this, thank you very much for being here. Peak Prosperity, we talk about things like this all the time. So if you like this level of data and context and commentary, you're going to love becoming a member at Peak Prosperity, where we're just dealing with reality. I think big prediction time, this is the year we move from abstract ideas. We can't define what a woman is, or we're about protecting the downtrodden without naming names and being specific about it. This is the year reality comes back into focus, comes back into vogue. It's going to change everything in our markets, our portfolios, what the future might hold. As Ayn Rand said, you can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of ignoring reality. Those consequences, it's a banquet of them. They're coming. That's what we deal with at Peak Prosperity. So with that, thank you much for being here, everyone. Thank you for attending. And we do the Signal Hour every Wednesday at 1:00. And otherwise, we have lots of content over at Peak Prosperity. So with that, thanks very much.
Have a
And
great afternoon.
we will see you next time. Bye for now.